Donald Trump's enemies tried to weaponize Epstein, the media, and their London-based financial power in a new assault on Donald Trump. But now their narrative is flipping as Epstein's own words, Trump's lawsuit against the BBC, and his attacks on the British drug finance machine all converge into one story about who actually runs the sex, drugs, and regime change racket. Let's hear Trump hater and close Epstein confidant Michael Wolff blow up the Democrats' Epstein scandal.
Epstein believed that it was Trump who first informed the police about what was going on at Epstein's house. And from that point on, they were nothing but bitter enemies.
That's right. Epstein thought Trump turned him into the feds, and he hated Trump for it. The president will also be suing the BBC, disrupting the British drug trade in the Caribbean, and building the conspiracy case against the 10-year British coup against Donald Trump and the American people. But if you listened to the mainstream media last week and much of social media, you'd believe that Trump is on the ropes because he is hopelessly out of touch on the cost of living, Epstein, and even the 2 assassination attempts against him. That's the desperate narrative they're selling. I'm Barbara Boyd, and I'm the co-author of the ebook, A Police Dossier, It's the British Who Murder Our Presidents. You can get it by following the link in the description. I've also written about the British instigated attacks on Donald Trump ever since they started back in 2015. Today, I'm going to first show you how Trump has blown up the Epstein scandal. Then I'll talk about the huge conspiracy case being put together against the insurrectionists and the president's focus on conveying what he's actually doing on the economy. Finally, I want to talk about the real problem we face in the midterms. No Republicans outside the president's cabinet team know how to talk about the economy. That's what we've got to cure. So buckle up. You're in for a deep dive here. It's what we do at Promethean Action. If you like our approach, please like and share this video. It will increase our audience. So next Tuesday, the long-awaited vote on releasing the Epstein files in Congress takes place. But the president is not waiting until then to turn the entire media show on the Democrats. Here's what he wrote on Truth Social yesterday. Quote, I'll be asking AG Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them and him. This is another Russia, Russia, Russia scam with all of the arrows pointing to the Democrats. Records show that these men and many others spent large portions of their life with Epstein and on his island. Stay tuned. Now, the congressional resolution is a farce. It exempts classified information from disclosure. But that's exactly what most serious people who have looked at Epstein want to know. What were Epstein's relations with British intelligence first, Israeli intelligence, the CIA, and our own State Department? After all, we already know that Prince Andrew is no longer a prince because of it, and Tony Blair's main operative, Peter Mandelson, was an Epstein intimate, and he's now in exile. That's not to mention Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who is widely viewed as a British and Israeli spy. The investigation Trump just ordered does not foreclose the classified information releases, but the Congress discharge petition does. It bars the most important classified material. Now, Michael Wolff courted Epstein as a potential weapon against Donald Trump beginning all the way back in 2015. That's right when British intelligence started Russiagate. Wolff had become famous because of a total access biography he wrote of Rupert Murdoch in 2008. The goal of the Wolff-Epstein-Trump project was to take down the Trump presidency. While Wolf wrote openly about his anti-Trump project with Epstein in his book, Too Famous, The Rich, The Powerful, The Wishful, The Notorious, The Damned, the new documents from Epstein's estate, released by the Democrats last week, tell us much, much more. Their joint project involved attempting to blackmail Trump early in his presidency. It evolved into lying about the relationship between Trump and Epstein, which ended, after all, in 2004, in order to rehabilitate Epstein's image ahead of his 2019 New York indictment. In 2018, Epstein was working directly with Barack Obama's lawyer, Catherine Rubler, to get Trump indicted and impeached. Not exactly the stuff showing Trump somehow was involved in Epstein's crimes or covering up his activities, the line the Democrats were trying to sell. And it is like Russia, 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 as Trump said. Now, Trump is really doing concrete things to take down the modern British financial empire, not just on foreign policy, but listen to this last week of activities. Here's President Trump talking about his obligation to sue the BBC yesterday.
How far will you push it? Because they haven't offered, our understanding is they've offered no money whatsoever. They've apologised in a letter, but they haven't offered you a penny in compensation. There was this figure of $1 billion that you may be pursuing.
I think I have an obligation to do it. Look, I'm not looking to get into lawsuits, but I think I have an obligation to do it. This was so egregious. If you don't do it, you don't stop it from happening again with other people. I think you probably have an obligation. I'd like to find out why they did it. You know, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Who thinks like this? And I wonder if they've done it. We'll find this out. You know, the nice part about litigation is we'll find out how many times have they done it to other people. Maybe they did it to me quite a bit.
The BBC is a key component of what the British Empire calls soft power, the ability to sell fake narratives to shape public opinion. They have been relentless against Trump for years, and now they got caught. They purposely chopped up Trump's January 6, 2021 speech to make it seem he was calling for violence. And here's Vice President Vance telling Sean Hannity last night that we are about to see major prosecutions in the 10-year coup directed at us, starting with the operation called Arctic Frost. That was the Biden attempt to prosecute Trump, all of his political associates, and wipe out key institutions of the Republican Party totally and forever.
Last question, Arctic Frost. It is getting bigger, and I talked to sources this morning. It's about to explode. And things that we thought were long lost and gone, I want to be a little cryptic, are not lost.
That's right.
And they're not gone.
That's right. Yeah, I want to be a little cryptic too, because I know that we're it's still in the early stages of this investigation. But look, Sean, I think it's one of the great scandals in American history. I think this is definitionally the Biden administration, the deep state, using the apparatus of justice to go after their political opponents. And I also think it raises a very critical issue, and something that I'd encourage my Senate friends on the Republican side to wake up about, because eventually you're going to see prosecutions, not just Arctic Frost related, but on a whole host of other issues. Eventually, we need certain subpoenas that have to be issued by a court. Eventually, you need local prosecutors, U.S. attorneys, to go after some of these people in a court of law. If you can't get a U.S. attorney appointed because the Democrat won't give you a blue slip, or you can't get a judge confirmed because the Democrats are gumming up the work of the Senate, Republicans have got to open up their perspective a little bit.
Vance is saying the key holdup on these prosecutions is the Senate process, which allows Democrats to block Trump's judicial and U.S. attorney appointments. He is calling for an end to that as a matter of national survival. The Washington Post flipped out on Tuesday about, quote, tears in the special relationship between the U.S. and the British. The president has put a full military and intelligence contingent into the Caribbean, where the British and the Dutch still have territories. The intent of his Operation Southern Spear is to totally wipe out the drug trade in our hemisphere. Why did the Brits cut their former intelligence sharing relationship with us in this area? The British offshore havens in the Caribbean are infamous for drug money laundering. Those who know call them the Caribbean branch of the Bank of England. So you're seeing a big pushback from the drug trade and their British imperial sponsors. Their fake news line this week, they say the president is about to engage us in another forever war by wiping out the drug trade. Makes a lot of sense to me. A U.S. surveillance mission and covert ops mission followed by military action endangers both the covers for British operations and their operatives themselves. So the problem isn't an intention to cover up any aspect of this conspiracy. It's the Senate's insane blue slip policy, which is holding up judicial appointments and U.S. attorney appointments necessary for these cases to proceed. So you can see that President Trump has launched a multi-point attack on central institutions of the modern British financial empire. That's why the attacks on him revved up to such a high pitch over the last 2 weeks. Now, let's talk about the problem with the economy. Here is J.D. Vance talking last night about the affordability crisis many Americans are still experiencing because of the hangover from Biden's economic disaster.
I know that there are a lot of people out there, Sean, who are saying things are expensive. And we have to remember they're expensive because we inherited this terrible inflation crisis from the Biden administration. But you've already seen signs that things are getting better. The price of eggs has gone way down. The price of energy has gone way down. The price of gasoline has gone way down. And as we know, when the price of energy goes down, that starts to filter out into the entire economy, but that also takes a little bit of time. There's another component of this, Sean, which to me is maybe the most important because I care so much about our young people being able to afford a good life. A lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who were taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens. And at the same time, we weren't building enough new houses to begin with, even for the population that we had. So what we're doing is trying to make it easier to build houses, trying to make it easier to build factories and things like that so that people have good jobs. We're also getting all of those illegal aliens out of our country, and you're already seeing it start to pay some dividends.
The problem we have ahead of the midterms is not that Trump isn't on the right track. It is that there are very few Republican congressmen or senators who have a clue about the American system economics that Trump administration is practicing. They are wedded to British free trade doctrines. They believe, like the majority at the British-centered Federal Reserve, that tariffs lead to higher prices and inflation. Some of them, tied to the big bucks Koch brothers Americans for Prosperity, are out to destroy Trump in 2026. But even some Fed economists have recognized the error of their ways. A team at the San Francisco Fed took an honest look at historical data and reported back last week that tariffs actually lower inflation. Persistent devotion to field economic models had led others to the worst and wrong conclusion. The San Francisco Fed team, however, did not acknowledge the main reason for the president's tariff and trade policy. We have to drag manufacturing and supply chains back to the United States if we are to survive and lead as a nation. That's the only way young Americans can have a terrific future. Promethean Action's main mission now and into the midterms is to cure this potentially fatal ignorance of Republican candidates through our videos, our writings, and our classes. The toolkit on our website is a start on this project. We need to expand it and grow our video briefings and written articles at the same time. Doing so obviously requires financial support, and I hope you will donate as much as you can today. The link is in the description. I'll see you again on Monday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com.